I'm Ernie Humphrey, Educational Programs Leader for Performative, the largest online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Cloud Financial Applications Then and Now, Why CFOs Are Now Cloud Ready. The adoption rate of cloud financial applications continues to explode at companies of all sizes and across more and more industries. CFOs at these companies are leveraging these applications to drive growth and competitive advantage. Today, Brian Sommer, accounting software expert and founder of Vital Analysis, and Tom Brennan, VP FinancialForce.com, will discuss the key findings of in-depth interviews with CFOs and a subsequent research report, revealing how attitudes towards cloud financial applications have changed in recent years and why the adoption rates are rising. To highlight the unique and often enlightening perspectives on why CFOs are embracing cloud financial systems today and the specific benefits they are seeing from their implementations, I would like to thank FinancialForce.com, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible and delivered at no cost. A quick note of today's agenda. First, we'll hear a joint presentation from our featured speakers. Then we'll move to the interactive Q&A session, where we will spend the remainder of the hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you, so if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. We can't promise to get all of them in, but we will do our best, and we'll follow up afterwards on any questions we did not get to today. A few logistical notes about the webinar. A link to today's presentation and video recording of the webinar we sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. Those who would like CPE credits will need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any questions on CPE credit, please send an email to cpe@performative.com. Again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel at any time during the webinar. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey regarding the webinar today. We greatly appreciate your feedback regarding our event today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. A quick word about Performative. Performative is the largest online community and resource for senior-level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related leaders. Performative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice and insights on the tough financial and strategic challenges they face every day. Let's get started by introducing today's featured speakers. Brian Sommer, founder and CEO of Vital Analysis. Brian is a ZDNet columnist and renowned accounting software expert. Prior to his current role at Vital Analysis, Brian served as a senior partner at Accenture. Brian has sold, designed, and implemented massive IT solutions around the world and has been active on the industry speaking circuit on every major continent. Brian's experience has him culturally attuned to technology buyers, and as such has written extensively on business value and ROI for prestigious publications like Optimize and the Wall Street Journal. Our other featured speaker today is Tom Brennan, Vice President at FinancialForce.com. Tom has over 25 years of experience working with many generations of technology, including the cloud and application service providers, ASP. Tom has held senior management positions in marketing, sales, and development at financial software and service companies, including at Coda Incorporated and ManagedOps.com. Tom holds a BS in accounting from Mount St. Mary's University and an MBA in marketing and international business from American University. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to Tom Brennan from FinancialForce.com. Tom, please take it away. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Ernie, and appreciate everybody joining us here today on Halloween, let alone the end of the month. So what we'd like to do here, Brian and I are going to take you on a little journey. We're going to talk about where we've come from a technology point of view and financial applications, then move in pretty quickly into where we are today with cloud technology, how people are adopting the technology and what they're getting out of it. And then we've got a little bonus section. We're going to talk about where this is going from a technology, but also what you can expect from a business value out of cloud in the future. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Brian. And Brian, you know, you've been an observer of the industry for a number of years, and you've seen technology come and go. What stage are we at with cloud technology from your perspective?
Well, that was kind of the question that I set out to answer a couple months back when I started interviewing about 36 chief financial officer and controllers for a number of different firms. Now, these were some pretty in-depth kind of interviews where I was trying to figure out kind of where, to your point, where are cloud financial accounting solutions kind of in their adoption life cycle. So I thought I'd start the conversation today by just reminding everybody that every generation of application software goes through a fairly predictable life cycle. And if you've been around long enough, I actually, that's a picture of some punch cards I still have here in my office just to kind of remind me of how much things have changed in a few short years. I've worked with those in college. I worked on dumb terminals. I think that's an IBM 3270 on the slide right there right now. But I've also worked with client-server applications, many of which took a while before they could even embrace Windows 3.1, where we started to finally see graphical user interfaces popping up. And then subsequently, we've seen other generations where there's been a web-enabled generation of packages that were basically client-server, but the information was going over the Internet. And now we have full-blown software as a service applications that are now coming into their own kind of right in the marketplace. A couple of things one thing in particular I want to point out is each generation usually brings new capabilities, a better or different value proposition than a prior generation, and they're going to go through a fairly predictable kind of life cycle. And so if we could, let me just show you what that life cycle looks like. All the way back in the 50s, some genius in like University of Iowa or somewhere like that came out with this thing called an adoption life cycle. This is the technology adoption life cycle. And Jeffrey Moore made this thing very famous in a book of his called Crossing the Chasm. And when he parsed through it all, there's always a handful of people who want to be the very first to take on some new technology. I don't know if it was somebody on this call, but I'm sure you know friends, whatever, who had to be the first on your neighborhood to have a laser disc machine. Anybody remember those? Or a Betamax, or a smartphone or tablet computer. And those are generally the innovators and early adopters. And in a business setting, when it comes to things like accounting software, somebody usually is picking up one of these kind of products because they're looking for some kind of significant competitive advantage that's going to give them a gain, if you will, over the competition for probably several years to come. However, I got to tell you honestly, when I talk to accounting buyers, accounting software buyers, not that many of them want to be innovators, early adopters, and they tend to shy away from bleeding edge kind of technology. In fact, when I hear somebody use the phrase creativity and accounting in the same sentence, that usually implies I'm going to hear about a jail term coming right behind it. But anyway, most of the buyers are going to be in the early majority and the late majority. And these are people who kind of wait for a little of the dust to settle out in the market. They want to buy from a market leader, and they want some relative, assurance that the products are going to work as marketed. And then there's that last group, which is always a perennial favorite of mine, because they have so many family members who buy technology this way. They don't buy the newest and latest and greatest. They wait till something's in the bargain bin around the corners at the Target store, to go buy something super cheap and usually quite out of date. So if those are all the different kind of groups, and then we have to think about, so where is cloud financial accounting software in this space right now? Has it done what Jeffrey Moore talked about? Has it crossed the chasm yet? And he opined in his book, Crossing the Chasm, that there's a rather significant break between the early adopters and the early majority. And this is the toughest spot for a lot of technology products to get hung up in. Can they actually cross that chasm? So let's go to the next slide. This tees up what I was trying to find out in my research this summer and early fall, which is where exactly is cloud financial accounting in this technology adoption life cycle. And I was trying to find out, is it running in similar kind of parallel fashions to other applications that have already moved to the cloud or not? And with that, why don't we maybe jump in with a polling question right about now and kind of just take the temperature of the attendees on the call. Just out of curiosity, this is a question that I asked CFOs and controllers without any aided answers or help at all. I asked them, how many cloud applications does your firm currently utilize? So let's, Tom, why don't you and I step back for a moment. Let's just see what kind of numbers are popping up on the screen.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your introductory comments. Just a reminder for those of you in the audience, after CPE credits today, you'll need to answer all 3 of the polling questions during the webinar. Of course, we appreciate everyone's consideration in answering our polling question. We hope this question inspires your questions, and we encourage you to please ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'm going to go ahead and leave the question up for another 10 seconds or so. Then I'm going to share the results and get some initial comments from Tom and Brian. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll at this point. And now I'm going to share the results. So Tom, can you give us some initial brief comments on what you think about the results?
You know, it's tough to do a scientific study because it depends on who comes to the webinars. But it's actually a little lower than I thought. Brian, I don't know what you think in terms of adoption. I thought.
It's a little low, but you know, I think one thing you need to look at is, if my math's right, 53% of folks have between 1 and 4 cloud applications already in their firm. So cloud stuff is clearly already in, you know, half or a little bit more than half of the people who are on the call today. And that's actually, I think, an important data point to remember as we start moving through, like, the very next slides, because I think the data is going to be really intriguing.
Yeah.
You know, I've done similar kinds of research stuff looking at credit unions. Well, let's go back one. Credit unions and others on their adoption of cloud applications. And what I've found, whether it's cross-industry or within specific industries, is that some applications, like CRM applications, kind of cross that chasm maybe back as far back as 2005 through 2009. And frankly, the folks who haven't got a cloud-based CRM solution like Salesforce.com by now are probably late majority or laggard buyers. HR applications, whether it's HRMS or talent management or even payroll now on the cloud, those things have been, people started buying those in large numbers probably in about 2009 or so to the present day, and they're really, you know, just, they're getting bought left and right by early and late majority kind of buyers. And what I was trying to find out on this study is, had the cloud stuff actually crossed over from, crossed that chasm between the early adopters and the early majority? And the bottom line is, I think the answer was yes, is what I got, and I'll tell you some more about that in a moment. But let's go to the next slide, because here's what I found interesting. When I was doing these in-depth interviews with CFOs, and I've asked them, how many cloud applications do you have? And again, I want to point out, I didn't help them with any answers or clues, or I didn't give them a list of things. But I was stunned at how many of them could rattle off 5 or more applications, just boom, right off the top of their head. And again, these are CFOs and some controllers. And they would be telling me things about, like, a lot of them had almost everybody had a CRM solution, and probably 9 out of 10 of them were referencing Salesforce. But they also had a lot of payroll and HR systems in the cloud. They had a lot of a variety of different finance applications. There were planning, budgeting, forecasting tools like adaptive planning, and things like that. They also had some banking applications. That's that SVB, that's Silicon Valley Bank. If they had sales solutions, they might have had a comp system for the calculating sales force compensation, like Exactly. Or they could have had a marketing automation solution like a Silverpop, Marketo, Eloqua. It was fascinating to me just to listen to all the different vendor names coming out. And this is just a tiny subset of some of the vendors and products that were mentioned over there. And right off the bat, when I heard this, I got a feeling, talking to these executives, that what they were going to tell me was that their firms already had a lot of essentially very positive experiences around the cloud, and they were going to continue to do so going forward, and the interviews certainly confirm that. So let's go to the next slide. Many of the people that I spoke with, probably like many of you on this call, have been in the finance or accounting profession for a number of years, and because I was targeting controllers and CFOs, I was getting individuals who generally had like 15, 20 years worth of experience, and they have had a lot of experience dealing with on-premises application software products. These, the on-premises kind of products are the ones that many of you have probably dealt with, that are installed on your computer or your computer network or servers at your place of business. You have to maintain them, you upgrade them, you have to keep everything secure. You do everything relative to that, except every once in a while a vendor ships you probably a DVD or a link with some new patches and upgrades you're going to have to apply. That's an on-premises kind of product. Cloud products works very differently. And what was interesting was listening to these CFOs when I'd ask them a simple question: what kind of counsel would you give your peers? For example, if you went to a CPA chapter meeting and you found out another CFO or whatever is thinking about replacing their financial software, what would you tell them? And the answers were very pointed, very direct, and they were, some of them were just like this gentleman's comments where he said, "I'm never going back to on-premises." One CFO, she told me that she goes, "Well, first of all, if I ran into somebody like that at one of these meetings, I'd tell them, what are you waiting for?" Now, she slipped an expletive in there too, but I'm not going to repeat that on this call. But she was, you know, they're adamant. They're not going back to this. And probably one of the best stories I could tell you on this was this one CFO, she said, "You know, I love the fact that I could leave the office on a Friday and come back in, you know, Friday at 5 o'clock, come in Monday morning at 8 a.m., and the systems have already been upgraded automatically for me. Nobody from IT had to get involved. I didn't have to get involved. No one in finance had to get involved. The vendor did all the maintenance and upgrades for us automatically." And she goes, "I love that." So I'll get into some of the other benefits and things that people talked, you know, shared with me on the interviews. But let me also lay out, let's go to the next slide. I just want to talk a little bit about how different the tone of these interviews were based on, compared to interviews I did in 2010. And in 2010, I talked to a lot of top execs, and to listen to them, it sounded like I was talking to somebody who was part of a wagon train heading across some vast, like the western U.S. in the mid-1800s, trying to settle some, you know, into some new lands against incredible adversity and huge amounts of unknown variables and factors that they had to deal with. These people clearly saw themselves in 2010 as risk takers and pioneers, and they were, you know, when they got through with it all, they were actually, I got to tell you, the tone of them, they were pleasantly surprised how smooth and easy things went on those cloud installations back then. It was much better than they thought it was going to be, and the results were certainly even better than they had anticipated. I mean, overall, it was a positive thing, but you could tell just from the way they explained the journey or whatever that they were on, that they felt that they were kind of all alone and were clearly trailblazing in some all-new territory. If you contrast that to this year, what we found were a very different kind of tone. You know, these are people who basically already know that cloud's where they're going to go. They've already figured out that the cloud providers generally have better data centers, better controls, better security and everything else than they had in their own firm. That they've learned that upgrades on cloud solutions are mostly an automatic thing that doesn't involve a lot of IT kind of dependency and support. And these systems scale both up and down, and those are just some of the kind of things that they already know. So they get it, and that tone is not of a pioneer anymore. These are people who are, they're not the innovators and early adopters now. The new folks installing stuff in 2013, it's clearly the early and late majority buyer today. Let's go to the next slide. So what we, you know, one of the other things I was testing people on when I was interviewing them were to find out, did any of the old FUD stuff, the fear, uncertainty, doubt that a lot of the older on-premises vendors used to sow with great abandon years ago, did it work? Was it stopping or slowing down people to moving to the cloud? And the bottom line was no. Nobody's buying those old arguments or, you know, fears and all that fear-mongering. It's just not, it's not effective. It's not working. And more to the point, a lot of software buyers like those of you on this call have also noticed that a lot of your old software vendors have actually gone out and made acquisitions of cloud software companies. And even they have kind of figured out that, yeah, maybe, you know, this multi-tenant cloud deployment model is probably a way better deal for buyers, and we need to kind of move along with the times as well. So let's, Ernie, I think we've got another polling question. Why don't we try and slip one in here right about now?
Okay, thank you very much. I've gone ahead and launched our second polling question. Thank you very much for that compelling content, Brian. Our next question asks the folks to identify the biggest potential or existing benefits of leveraging cloud financial application. Again, those of you after CPE credits for today's webinar need to answer all the polling questions during the webinar. Again, we hope this polling question inspires your questions, and again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel. We have two renowned experts here, so it's a great opportunity for you to ask your specific questions. I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for just another 10 seconds or so, and then we're going to go ahead and get some comments from Brian on the polling question, and then we'll let him get back to this compelling content on these interviews that he's conducted with CFOs. So I'm going to go ahead and close the polling question at this point. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So, Brian, take it away, please. Brief comment on the results for us.
Let's see. I'm kind of reading them real time with everybody else. I'm a little surprised how high that real-time anywhere access scored, although in candor, I actually heard that a lot from a number of CFOs. They loved the fact that they and their staff do not have to be tethered to a desktop computer in their offices, or they have to go through some elaborate login, remote login process to try and get at the information. They could be sitting there at their kid's soccer game checking up on something on an iPad, and they can definitely get it. This other one about reducing IT costs and dependencies is spot on the money. In some economic studies we did a while back, we looked at the actual cost of ownership, total cost of ownership on-premises solutions versus cloud-based multi-tenant solutions, and depending on the company, between 40 and 61% of the total cost of ownership over 8 to 10 years on an accounting package was basically tied up in a company's own IT staff that's needed to keep patching, upgrading, and maintaining those solutions. So about, 30% of the folks absolutely nailed it on that one. And you guys can read all the other distribution of it. But those two big ones, I think, are pretty telling right there. That's 62% of the total answers, and I think the audience is pretty savvy on that point. Well, let's get back to some of the other benefits that are out there. Related to that, ease of use or whatever it was, this people and geography thing. And while I kind of expected to hear some, anecdotes or whatever from the interviewees, I guess I was really pleasantly, surprised at how many CFOs were talking about, the beauty of these cloud solutions is anywhere they want, they can open an office basically with just getting an internet access point in place. That systems are instantly there and provisioned and ready to rock and roll, that they're not having to buy a server rack and acquire servers and acquire system software licenses and get all this stuff installed and have an IT person on, at the location, whatever. They can just put up offices anywhere, anytime, as long as they have an internet connection. And and that opens them up to some new levels of flexibility. This one CEO that shared with me that he loves the fact now that he doesn't have to physically make a trip to the office to find out what's going on. Anytime he gets 5 minutes, like between catching a plane flight or whatever, he just jumps on his iPad, bam, he's got access to everything that's going on in his firm, which he didn't have that capability just a year ago. And the other thing I heard a lot about, particularly, I would say some of the more enlightened executives realized that it's hard for a lot of small to medium-sized businesses to attract and retain great talent. And to be able to give workers some measure of enhanced flexibility where they can do their work anywhere, anytime, and do it wherever they want to do it, gives them an ability to keep people happy and possibly keep them working for their firm possibly years longer than normal. So it had a kind of a retention, worker morale kind of flexibility, and other kind of aspects of it, which there were just more of those comments that I had anticipated. Maybe that's because I've got a little bit more of a technical bias, but I was surprised how strong some of these soft side points were with some of these CFOs and controllers. Next slide. Another thing that popped up for some of the respondents was they love to talk about something called the Platform as a Service, abbreviated PaaS. And platforms are different than software as a service. It's kind of a common tool set with which several cloud solutions run under. They have the same development tools, same programming language, same integration capabilities, and the like. Tom, who's with Financial Force, and he'll be talking some more in a moment here, his company, they built their product on the same platform that Salesforce.com, the CRM solution, is built on, and that allows them to have a number of pre-built kind of integration capabilities that just make it easy for like one of Tom's customers to also use Salesforce or the other way around, and there's also manufacturing products and a whole bunch of other stuff that's out there if you want to add those or use those in your company, and they already come pre-integrated, which is super cool and super cheap. So and there are other tools and the like that are out there. So if you're used to being able to pick up new apps for your smartphone, getting cloud solutions that are part of some of these large application ecosystems can have some rather significant business benefits for your companies as well. And a lot of the respondents were picking up on this too. Next slide. Another thing that was kind of interesting was the freeing up of resources. On this point alone, I got to tell you, the accounting pros that I dealt with were all over this. They immediately recognize that they get a lot of value now with these cloud solutions because they are not dependent on, nor do they have to rely upon IT to anywhere near the extent that they did before. And that's not to say that's a bad thing. What it is actually they see it as an opportunity to free up their technology people to work on more strategic things that the company needs, whether it's building mobile applications, whatever. And the key benefit behind this was not because that a solution's hosted it in the cloud. No, it needs to be a multi-tenant solution, which is one where it works kind of like the way the Google search engine bar works. We all can pull up that website, but we're all using one copy of Google's code, yet we get, and so that's how, like probably today on Halloween, I haven't checked yet, but I bet you Google's probably changed their logo to look like probably a bunch of pumpkins or something in honor of Halloween, and we all instantly got that. There was no software we had to load or anything else. We all get the benefit of that, and that's what these multi-tenant vendors can do, is they can make one change to their accounting application, and all of the customers can take advantage of that new capability or functionality. Those are some big benefits that people zeroed in on, and they knew these things. I didn't even have to tell them. They already have already realized those kind of benefits in their firm. Next slide. And the last thing I want to talk about, and this kind of goes with that freedom to open like an office anywhere, anytime, but this talks about how these products scale. And the beauty about these cloud applications is the vendor is the one who's on the hook to make sure they've got enough disk storage available for you and enough memory and so forth. And when you need it, you just consume it. And if you don't need it, you don't consume it, and you don't get billed for it. So this ability to scale up and down is really attractive. And for those of you who dealt with on-premises products, you generally know, if you ever read your software contracts closely, that most on-premise software contracts only scale one way, up. Bills only go one direction, up. And these things, these cloud solutions, they don't have incremental license fees. That's what the ILF is. They work based on what your business actually needs and consumes. And most of the companies I was talking about with were kind of clearly, to me, were starting to see pickups in their business because of an improving economy. Not that many folks were talking to me about scaling down, which I view that as a good sign, but they were talking about the ease with which they were scaling up, opening new locations, or adding new users and so forth. So those were all, the kind of benefits I was hearing. And what this all leads up to, and if we go to the next slide, is that I was pleasantly surprised at how many of these folks actually got what the business value is supposed to be coming from these solutions, and we're talking about the value that they've already realized. And that was true for both the accounting financial applications that I was most interested in, but even on some of the earlier cloud applications that preceded them into the marketplace. So I'm going to take a moment, catch my breath, and have a drink of Dr. Pepper. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tom. And Tom, why don't you pick up the next piece of it from here?
Great. Thanks, Brian. So I want to expand a little bit here on some of the things that Brian said. I'll take a little bit different cut at it. But then I want to talk about where this is going as an application, and also strategically how the cloud can be used in your business. In one way, I'd sort of summarize sort of what's happened in the industry and with companies is when cloud first came out, is the first version of it was really pitched as a cost savings vehicle, and the truth is it is. And Brian can show you a number of studies he's done. This one was done by CFO and Google, and you'll see lots of different studies about it. It's just a better cost-effective way to do IT. And so the first versions of the cloud were sort of pitched on that premise. But what's happening is it's moving more towards a strategic business value, where companies are realizing that the value is not just in saving IT or a better way to do IT. It's a better way to run your business. And so we're seeing more and more surveys like this one that are talking about the cloud being central to how a business operates, how they're able to be more agile, to add more offices as an example and keep people. It's got many other benefits to it than just the IT thing. And what's great to see in Brian's examples is people talking about those things in lots of different ways. It all depends on your business. But one of the things I see with our companies that we deal with is that if you look at one company, you try to differentiate one company from each other, you're going to see that the companies, a lot of what they're about is about their systems. And if you can roll out applications, things that help you add value, help you differentiate your company more readily, you're going to be at an advantage. And so that's one of the big values that's coming out of this whole generation of cloud users now, is they're seeing that they can adopt and build and roll out apps to anywhere and lots of different devices much more quickly than they could in the past. And part of what I'm saying is a lot of companies have become software companies. That's how they're differentiating. So that's one big aspect of it. But as you can see, it's getting much more strategic. And one of the big things that's driving us in this direction is this trend that's been identified by Forrester. And what they've identified is that we have now entered the age of the customer. And I really like this diagram, and I like also the fact that it parallels that punch card slide that Brian showed earlier on, and how generations of technology have moved along, because these stages have roughly parallel technology changes, which is quite interesting. And I didn't really think about it until Brian and I sort of sat down and put this together. But when you looked at up through the 60s, manufacturing was very laborious and such, and so there was a real drive to push automation into manufacturing to make it more efficient. So that really spawned the whole era of using computers in manufacturing, and enterprise resourcing planning, things of that nature started really occurring during that. So during that time, there was this just big push to put automation for manufacturing. And then came the age of distribution, and the Walmarts of the world figure out, we got to really wring out the friction in the inside of our supply chains and make those more efficient. And that came along with lots of different technology. A lot of mini computers actually were used in distribution, in fact, to help solve those problems. And then we came to the age of information. And roughly in that 1990 period is when client-server came out. One of the big benefits of client-servers was that information was on a relational database, and then there were these Windows-based point-and-click tools where you could do reporting out of it. And so all of a sudden you could start generating reports and get dashboards and things that you couldn't do before. And that also permeated the layers underneath of where we've automated distribution and manufacturing, and data warehousing and business intelligence all spawned from that. But now here we are in 2013, and what's happening is you've got customers who've become more and more empowered with social media, with mobile devices, where they've got their own minds and their own time frames that they're doing things. And what's happening is that we've spent a lot of time, especially in the last several years, bringing out costs and things, and we have to find ways to grow our companies. You can't grow yourself down to succeed. You have to find ways to add to the top line. And so the factors of what's going on with technology and social media and such, combined with the need to grow, is put us in this age where we need to focus more on the customer to help differentiate our businesses. And so when you look at what's going on in the C-suites of companies, that this is really top of mind. This is a study Forrester pulled from IBM, which talks about that being more, I guess you'll see the phrase, we'll use it later as well, is customer experience, or CX as it's sometimes known as. That is a strategic priority in a company. And yeah, we've always wanted to take care of the customer, we want to be customer focused, and what we're talking about is a whole new thing, and a much more encompassing thing that we'll talk about here in a minute. But CEOs now are becoming what we call customer obsessed, and they're talking about customer relationships as being critical to what they do, and they're investing an awful lot in getting more insights about what's going on with their customers. And so what's happening, like if you look at technology companies, there's a fortune being dumped into analytic tools to do more data analysis on customers, and there's also a fortune being dumped into marketing automation apps that are particularly good at the social media side of things, gathering information about what's going out there on the internet. And so literally where money is being spent is being pushed in that direction overall, and you'll see that the number of technology companies that have gone public, they're all in those spaces. And so the CFOs are certainly on their mind, but what actually surprised me a little bit more was that I'm seeing it also in a number of CFO studies, and this was done by CFO Alliance, and they did this study, and one of the findings they said when they asked CFOs, what's your top operational challenges, they put driving growth as the #1 item for the CFO. And then I was also surprised to see number 3 in there about improving responsiveness and meeting customer expectations as being so high. And this is above many other typical things that you would see, financial-oriented things that you would see a CFO concerned about. These were very high on that list, so it's literally in every corner of the executive suite, if you will. So the question is, if things are moving along in that direction, have things really changed? And Brian and I have some fun talking about, I guess to some extent, how old we are, generations we've seen. But what's funny is sometimes when you move from one generation to another, you do see a big benefit, and then other times you don't. And when you don't, it's when the software suppliers get stuck into the way they used to do things. And I'll give you an example. So that you see that punch card there from the 60s to the 80s. The punch cards, there was a lot going on with machines with small memory, and you had to run batch processes. What's really sort of hilarious to me is how much batch processing is still used. It was used through the proprietary platforms and the mini computers. It went all the way through client server, where you had big AP systems that dump into the GL, and you have to reconcile the two. And the same thing on the AR side. So the batch processing model sort of stayed. It started on those because it had to, frankly, because the architecture really didn't need to, frankly, as time went on. And so the question is have the vendors, are they still stuck in the old ways that they were doing things, or have they moved on? And one of the things I just would caution you on, look at cloud apps if you are, but make sure that the applications have moved on, in fact, and are offering something new. It's not just a new coat of paint on sort of the old thing. So
yeah, I call those.
Go ahead,
Tom,
Brian.
I call those packages SaaScades. Those old on-premise products that have gotten a new coat of paint or lipstick on the pig, whatever, that are now sold as a hosted solution. That really, the underlying core functionality and the design guidance on how these things were put together hasn't fundamentally changed in 20, 30 years, and they're just trying to milk it in a new generation. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No problem at all. Please do. So one of the things I want to kind of pose to you today is just to think about this. And one of the things that we've seen is sort of this old way financial apps were built, and what kind of took over was the whole notion of enterprise resource planning, or ERP. And ERP had its time and place, and it was great in both the technology curve and the business curves that I showed you from Forrester. And ERP, predominantly, if you even look at the name enterprise resource planning, it's about managing your resources, about doing things internally. And so the application design and everything about it was very much focused inside the building. And so the technology, and that's why you need firewalls and you need other technology to get into what you're doing. It's not really designed to be out there. Of course, there weren't mobile phones and things like that, but it was pretty much that's the way the world was. You worked inside the building. And the other thing about it is the way they were designed. It was still with that older, if you think about that punch card analogy, it was very hierarchical, departmental oriented, and so things were built around departments, and then more or less geared to how can we drive down costs for the most part. And there's some process stuff in there too, but a lot of it was very cost-centric to measuring costs and how can you drive those down. So it's very internally focused, both from a technology and an app point of view. And because of this sort of departmental view that it did take, it led to things. So you have CRM was for sales, or it was Salesforce automation originally, and accounting was for accounting, right? And so what happened is these apps built up, and even the modules were named for departments: accounts payable department, accounts receivable. So a lot of times we ended up with these data silos between apps. So, for instance, the front and back office are in different systems, and then so what you saw is there was a lot of activity where processes got thrown over a wall from one department to the other, and then it was up to business users in many cases or others to help integrate them, to try to not just integrate the systems, make sure the process and the people and everything that was going across that. And there were sort of these divides that you had to deal with. And one aspect of this was customer service, and the back office was literally the back office, and the people in the front were the ones who dealt with the customer pretty much only. And so that was their domain. And because this is all internal oriented, there's a little bit of an us versus them system that's set up where companies are saying, we are our company, and then we hand off things like transactions and products to the customers. And so it's a much more a arm's length kind of system and orientation to it. And so overall, it's a very inward-looking thing. And so where we're going, our company, and where we think the industry should be going is a more borderless approach, where there aren't these walls between departments internally. In fact, there's not that many walls between you and your customer, so you can get closer to your customer. And so from the outset, and this is where the business trend and the technology trend merge to really create something valuable, is the technology allows you to do that too. So it's designed to work outside the building. It's designed to work while you're at the customer site. It's designed to work while you're working at home or on the road or on a train somewhere. And the orientation about this, because of the growth orientation and the top line needs and this obsession about the customers, it's much more revenue and customer centric in the way it's built, and it helps you organize around the customer as opposed to be just organizing around the department. And so there's a lot of things you get from this. One of them is because you're doing it, you're getting one view of a customer. You have multiple records of a customer in a CRM system, another one in a billing, another one in a shipping system, and on down the line. A lot of you I know struggle with having multiple customer records and data broken up in different places. Right? And so what it's about is joining up the front and the back office so that everybody can talk to the customer, no matter who it is. They've got the information about that. And I know the idea of borderless may be a little scary to some of you from a security point of view, but the way this is designed, of course, is you decide what you put out there. But one of the big ideas around this is that you are building systems that enables your customer-facing employees to talk to your customers with whatever information they need, whether it is in CRM, whether what was sold, what was shipped, what your receivable situation is, maybe, and if you're using a project-based system, where are you with the project? And so versus an us versus them situation, you're now in a more collaborative place where you're partnering with the customer and you're working tightly with them. And so fundamentally what we're doing is we're building our value as a company around the customer, and so are our systems. So where this moves on as well is in the area on the difference between what I would call the transaction point of view, which ERP got very good at. You could pump. The idea was get transactions through the system as fast as you can, get all that data in there. You're off and running. But what it sort of did is it turned customers into numbers a little bit, and sometimes customers felt that way. And so when you looked at a customer's, what's going on with a customer? Well, they're past due, and you got statuses of them in that kind of, I would say, cold way. And if you wanted to find out about that customer, you would email, maybe voicemail, a sales rep or a customer service rep. Hey, what's going on with this customer? Why haven't they paid their invoice? And because the CRM people were dealing with the customers, that was sort of the domain. Now, you may have had credit collection people chasing down folks, but they probably didn't know a whole lot what was happening on the CRM side of things. Whereas this new day is more about your customer, the conversations you're having with your customers, both internally and externally. And the customer is treated more as a person. You know what they're feeling and what they're thinking by the conversations you have it. And because you can now with these cloud apps like ours, you can have social media apps that are embedded inside the accounting, and the receivables app is a great example where you're able to have conversations now about, geez, well, I'm in credit collections. I want to collect. Let me see what's going on with that account. You can see on the account maybe the service department is having conversations internally about, boy, we got a problem here with this customer, and it's on our end. We got to fix it. So before you call that customer to beat them up about paying an invoice, you want to know what's going on. You might want to know what's going on with the sales team as well. And that works vice versa, where they can see before they go to take another order, has the customer paid the last one? Or before I perform this service, have they paid? Can they see that? So there's visibility to that, but then there's also of the transactions and activity, but the social interactions. Hey, should I, before I call this customer, should I, is there an issue with service? And you can have those conversations internally. And then what's now happening is you're able to engage customers with social media together. So, in that case, all three departments can be talking with the customer and say, hey, Joe, I understand, we've got an invoice late. Can you tell me what's going on? And then the customer then comes back with a chatter conversation, or I'm using Chatter because it's an app we use for social media. It comes back and says, hey, I'm not paying it because I'm really upset with the product that you shipped me. You'll see it right there, and everybody who's involved will see what's going on. They'll see how mad the customer is as well. So the notion here of the borderless back office is you're serving your customer, but you're also serving your internal folks in lots of different ways, and one of those ways is allow them to deal with the customer as well. So this is just sort of an example of what I'm talking about. This happens to be one of our apps where anybody, if you give them permission, and this could be a salesperson and a service rep or whatever, could go out and see a customer with an iPad, and you see on that right-hand list, it's a bit subtle, but you can see that they can see when they go to talk to that customer, they can see what sales opportunities are going on, what cases are there with the call center, what invoices and credit notes are against that account, what cash entries have been done, any activity. The social stream will be on there too, any conversations that have gone with them, and even if you have a project and you're managing a professional services project, you can see that too. So you literally have the back office in your pocket or under your arm that you can walk in to an account and have a full discussion with them about what's going on with them. There's no departments to worry about. What you do is you come across as one company to your customer. And of course the customers like that. We've heard some great stories from our customers about how they're doing that. So with that, what I'll say is that we're moving through this adoption curve, as Brian talked to, and we're going into where it's more mainstream, and we're moving. There's all these great cost benefits, but now we're getting to the strategic benefits, and now it's kind of amping up into this customer experience evolution that Forrester is laying out, and that's, to me, is where the big value of that is. So with that, I thought I'd bring Brian back, and I think you've got some words of wisdom that you may want to share on this journey.
Yeah, so while I was talking about kind of research and what we found out in interviewing CFOs, Tom was talking about kind of where these financial applications are going to kind of have to go to provide a lot of the data that's going to be required to power some better customer experiences that CEOs want their organizations to deliver. I did a piece recently on ZDNet where I was talking about why some of these CX initiatives are going to struggle a little bit. And one of the problems, or some of the, I'm not going to go through all the issues that I covered in there, but what we've seen in customer experience, how it evolved, is there have been like call center tools, and we've all, called a call center in our lifetime, probably multiple ones, and experienced varying degrees of frustration about whether our problems got solved or not. There have been Salesforce automation tools which have helped a CSO or Chief Operating Officer figure out kind of what's in the pipeline and which kind of deals may or may not close in this quarter or month, whatever. Those got expanded into customer relationship management tools. Then those, like Salesforce, and then you get these like marketing automation tools, which were like the Eloquas, Marketos, Silverpop, Pardots, and others of the world that really take a good look at managing the funnel of what's going on from raw prospects to fully educated and primed and ready kind of hot sales leads to move to sales. Now, since then, some vendors have tried to add some social listening capabilities to an existing CRM suite, and they try and call that customer experience, but I don't really buy that. What folks really want is they want something that's a very real customer experience, and for that to happen, companies are going to need the kind of information that Tom was talking about. They need to have highly integrated financial data that also is married up with CRM data, marketing automation data, and other kind of points, because everything and everywhere a customer touches your organization needs to be put together in a single view of what's going on there, and that will get you this sort of optimal customer experience kind of world. Now, there's some other things that have to happen about, you'll probably end up having to change metrics and processes and I'm not trying to make short shrift of this. This is tough stuff. But the bottom line is it's not going to be enough for you guys to just change your financial applications. You're going to need to start calculating things like lifetime customer value. What is it? What is the customer's time to value on using your kind of products and solutions? What do the impact of certain kind of sales programs do to increase or decrease a customer's propensity to buy from your firm in the future? And how do you value the lifetime of a customer's potential purchases with your firm? Some of these are questions that still bedevil the accounting industry. Should we treat customers like assets? And I would argue yes. And I think we're going to need to have some kind of more forward-looking kinds of systems and tools that have all this integrated information, whether it's coming from social data feeds, from accounting systems, marketing systems, so forth. It's got to all come together. It's got to be in one place. And that's kind of the destination that's coming up and coming forward. So why don't we go to the next slide, and we'll start bringing this to a wrap and do the Q&A here.
Yeah, so you see there the role of financial systems are going to change along the spectrums. And if you want to learn more about the cloud, there's more we can talk to you also about the role of what I would say, role of a financial system in a customer-centric organization. One of the things I'd urge you to do is get this report from Vital Analysis, Brian's firm, about how he learned to stop worrying about cloud financial software. We can get that for you at Financial Force if you like. You can contact us, call us, just email us if you like as well, but certainly the good old phone still works, or just come right through our website. And there we have on our website a number of different webinars and other videos for you to take a look at too. So with that, I guess I should turn it back to Ernie.
Okay.
And we should probably go to Q&A.
Sure. Thank you very much, both of you, for that compelling content. Go ahead and start our Q&A session. Again, if you have any questions, please enter those questions during the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel. First question is for Brian. Can you give us a sense of the demographics of the companies which you interviewed? And in terms of the companies you interviewed in 2010 and 2013, were those the same companies or different company demographics?
Okay, the last question, they were different companies, and there's no ulterior motive on that. I just got different ones, and I like to kind of not tap the same well too many times, I guess, when I'm doing these research projects. As far as the demographics, The ones in 2010, believe it or not, were actually larger companies, I would say on average, than the ones I did this last summer, or this summer and early this fall. The 2010 study, I looked at a lot of, I kind of cherry-picked some of the biggest customers that like a Salesforce and some other firms had done. And I was doing that just to see what experiences the big boys actually had, because there were some other reasons behind that I won't even get into. This time around, I did a lot more mid-market companies. Some were entrepreneurial and some were high-tech, but for the most part, I mean, these were companies who like distribute light bulbs, or you know, they were all over the map. There was no one single industry concentration, but they were more clearly mid-market based. I had probably more of those than anything else. I did have some small ones and some large ones, but the bulk of them were in the mid-market. I hope that answered that question. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Tom, next question, direct to you initially. What are some key things for folks to look out for when evaluating cloud financial systems?
Well, I think there's you know, a number of typical things you're going to look for. There's the basics, I suppose, that you need to kind of run through. But you know, we are on, as we showed in that slide, we've been through many generations of accounting apps. So one thing I just urge is don't just try to reinvent what you have today. There's a lot more out there and things that you can do. And I guess fundamentally to that is for you to sit back and think about where is your business going, how are you going to differentiate it, what systems do I need to do that, and when you have that answer, that will help you say, well, how is my cloud app going to be part of that overall strategy? You know, looking at things as a point solution. While I think some of the early generations of cloud, and a lot of cloud apps were this way, where someone just bought one single app. The days of those are over. I think Brian was alluding earlier to the different exchanges where you can get multiple apps on the platform. That's where I think things are moving, and where you need to think about strategically what platforms are there out there that I can run my business on. How will this play in my overall business strategy?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
If I could, Ernie, I'd add to that. I would tell you to buy as big of a suite or as big as an integrated, you know, collection of products that you can get. Or certainly, if you start off with one app, buy it in an ecosystem where you can add to that. I would also tell you to look hard and make sure that you're getting probably a multi-tenant solution, because that's where some of the best economic benefits are going to come from, and make sure you pick one of those kind of packages. I think that'll serve you the best longer term.
As opposed to the hosted, taking a client server-based app and putting it in a data center and calling it cloud.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question as we have our final Q&A questions. I'll direct this questions to Brian. What are the demographics of the type of companies that are moving to the cloud, and then some of the demographics of those that are still laggards?
Wow. Of the ones who are moving, one of the subtleties that I found out is there actually were a number of laggards moving to the cloud. And here's why. They're facing both obsolescence on their application software and on their computing hardware. They're sitting on like old Windows NT servers or whatever in their data center, and they know they need to get rid of those or replace them. And so they're actually going into the cloud. I did a huge internal project for other, you know, cloud software company, and I was surprised to find out about 40% of their customers were either laggard or late majority buyers. And it's because they have hardware and software obsolescence issues they're trying to deal with right now. And going cloud is the cheapest way for them to do it, because they don't have to buy any of the hardware gear. So, you know, I've seen a lot more of that than I probably would have normally thought. That would be one interesting kind of exception to the theory that Jeffrey Moore had in his book, Crossing the Chasm. And that's probably the big standout point there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Tom, I'd like to direct my final question to you. You mentioned, you know, we're going into the age of the customer. Can you just put a fine point on this as to how cloud financial applications are helping finance improve the customer experience for us?
Well, one is, I think I alluded, is you're providing the financial information about the customer to your customer-facing teams. And many companies, you say the sales and service people, they have no access to a receivable system, as an example, and so they don't know the simple things, whether somebody paid or not, and what the real credit situation is. So that's one way. The other way is we're doing things like providing customer community portals where you can put financial information inside a online community with a customer, and you could be put out there there are different invoices that they might owe, what they've paid, but also then put a social media element in it where you can have conversations with them. And you can then merge that with what you have, say, on the CRM and the sales side, and you literally have one place for everything the customer needs to know about you in this environment, and then not just the transactional, as I mentioned, but also the conversations back and forth of what's happening. And so you truly have a holistic view of all those conversations that are going on with the customer.
Great. Thank you very much. With that, to speak of time, I'd like to close the Q&A session. We'll coordinate with the speakers any unanswered questions we did not get to and get those posted on performative.com. A big thank you to Tom and Brian for their time and insights. They're clearly thought leaders in their field and an excellent source of information on today's topic. Note in the post-webinar survey, which you'll be prompted to take right after the webinar concludes, you have the opportunity to express your interest in being connected with either or both of them and our sponsor with just a few mouse clicks. Again, a big thank you to today's sponsor, FinancialForce.com. Finally, thank you to the audience for your valuable time. We hope to see you again at another Performative event or online at www.performative.com. Happy Halloween, everybody, and make the rest of your day great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.